Welcome to the Midlife Style School, the podcast for women who want to elevate their personal style and life by design. I'm your hostess, Afton Porter, certified life coach and fashion stylist, known as the Chief Image Creator, helping high-profile women polish their image with standout style in their industry. Through our conversations and insight, I'll provide simple tricks and practices that will help take the stress out of getting dressed in the morning so you can start each day feeling empowered, confident, and ready to take on whatever comes your way. Let's go. Hey, how are you? Come stroll the streets of Paris with me as I interview Jennifer Melville, author of Paris in My Panties. She is an accountant during the day, but she has self-published several books that you can find on Amazon. And she is a internet friend of mine that I found on Instagram. And she loves fashion and style and Paris as much as I do. I know you're going to love this interview and love her book. I actually picked it up and it's her musings of this trip. And we're going to go through a little bit of that today. So if you love fashion, style, and Paris, come join me. I want to introduce you to the Paris and Panties author, Live Your Best French-Inspired Life, Jennifer Melville. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Afton. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Share with us a little bit about your experience with Paris and why you decided to write this book.
I've written a few books that are kind of light and fun, inspiring reads that cover a wide range of topics from personal style to health to personal finances to home life, and of course, most recently, my book on Paris. So I grew up in a bilingual community in Atlantic Canada. So I was immersed in the French language from a very young age. I was lucky enough to go to school, to a French immersion school for 12 years while growing up. And so I've always considered myself a Francophile. I often draw experience from the French way of life because I think they are masters of living with intention, masters of living a life that embraces beauty and joy and great food and fashion and style and just all those good things in life that just basically elevate the everyday. This book really came to life on my most recent trip to Paris, but it does draw on some of my experiences from past trips. I've been lucky enough to visit France probably 6 or 7 times throughout my life, different areas of France. So I've collected a lot of observations and stories along the way. And this book kind of came together as a collection of kind of musings and observations and how we can all live a French-inspired life no matter where we live, no matter where we call home, and how to learn from the French and add more joy to our own lives by adopting some of their approaches to life.
I agree. I feel like in America, so we're in Arizona, where it's all desert and dry and hot, and it doesn't have the beauty of, now it has its own unique beauty, but it doesn't, I miss that, like the history that's there and the beauty and the arts and the richness that I love that. I'm drawn to that. And I myself am trying to create more beauty and surround myself with the things that you talk about in this book, just because I just feel like it adds more simplicity and beauty that it's hard to find or is missing in a lot of our lives in America. So I love that you learned French growing up. We're trying to learn that now, and it's actually really difficult. In your book, you have a chapter called Learn the Language of Love. And let me tell you, it's not easy.
Look, it's not easy for me. I agree. It's not an easy language to learn. And I knew I could speak French a lot better when I was 18 years old than I am now at 47. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? It's true. Yeah, it's a struggle for sure. But it is it's exercise for the brain, right? That's how I see it.
One of the reasons why I think it's hard is because it's very different from English. I learned Spanish. It's very different from Spanish. It's hard. And in my phone, so you gave some really great suggestions in the book. One of the things I've done is I've changed my phone from English to French. And sometimes, yeah. And sometimes it's hard for me to do what I want to do on my phone, but it does force me to learn certain things. If it's an American app, if it's an English app, then it will come up as English. But like on Facebook, anything that I want to do on there, or Instagram, it's in French. And
that's a good
one of the ways I'm trying to immerse myself, but it is a goal that we go to Paris. I have a question. So you talk about the cafes in Paris.
Yes.
And I love coffee. Don't they just go and like do a shot of espresso and then they're off to the next thing? Or is that wrong?
The cafes I was at, you'd have a mix of tourists who would basically be sitting there for as long as they possibly could, which was me. Parking myself in a front row seat and people watching from the cafes. Early in the morning, what I noticed when we were at Les Deux Magots, there was a school route. So basically it was the school run, all the parents dropping their kids off at school, which I loved watching. I noticed that a lot of those moms and dads would come to the cafe afterwards and they would sit down, they'd take their shot, because a cafe is just, it's a tiny little cup, right? And then they just sit and talk for a while or read the paper, as opposed to here where we just go through the drive-through. At least that's what we do in Canada.
Right.
It's a drive-through culture.
So I'm from Seattle, and it's my understanding that Starbucks originated from the cafes in Europe. I don't know if it was in Paris, but probably where they came up with their concept. So does it look like Emily?
Yeah. Oh, if you're asking me does it look like Emily in Paris? Yes. And did I specifically get a hotel in the area where Emily in Paris was filmed? Yes, I did. On purpose, because I wanted that vibe. So the area that I was staying in for this trip was Saint-Germain-des-Prés, which is the 6th arrondissement, which is where a lot of I think her apartment scenes were filmed. So that kind of classic with the courtyard in the middle, that classic scene, that was a lot of where those scenes were filmed, was in that district where we stayed.
Oh, that would just be heaven to be able to walk down those streets and be able to see the sights.
It was. Yeah. Somebody asked me why I named this book Paris in My Panties. And it was just, do you ever go on a vacation and you just feel transformed when you're there? And you're just so enthralled with everything in the environment. And you feel like you just want to come home and hang on to that vacation glow and just hang on to it as tight as you can before you slip back into reality. Well, that's kind of what this book was meant to be. It was almost like started out as a journaling experience for me. And how can I carry the essence of Paris back home in my suitcase? How can I carry it intimately right next to my skin in my panties? How can I take this home and feel the way I feel on this vacation? How can I feel like this in my everyday life? Was really my goal when I wrote this book.
One of the superpowers as us women that nobody sees that can change the way that you walk and just present yourself and show up is actually wearing some undergarments, some panties that you absolutely love, that are gorgeous and beautiful, that, are essentially just for you. And I love that you talk about lingerie in your chapter. So tell us a little bit about the
My
lingerie there.
my lingerie shopping.
Yeah,
So
about your experience,
yeah,
because they're known for, lace. I mean, you can't go to Paris without getting some really pretty lace.
yeah. I mean, I got some panties in Paris. I did. For sure. I mean, there are so many lingerie shops. I had to kind of keep it under control. So before I went, I decided specifically what shop I wanted to go visit because I have a very, how do I say this, petite chest, very petite. And in fact, it's very,
I
very,
did read about that
yeah, triple A.
a little bit.
AAA rating. I have a really hard time finding bras that fit. Here at home, I have numerous times been referred to the teen section. So I did a little bit of research before I left, and there's a brand, I don't know how they pronounce it. It's spelled YSE. I would say Ise, YS accent aigu. And I know that they are known to tailor specifically to smaller chested women. So yeah, I went in. My husband came in with me, and then some woman walked out of the dressing room with her bra and panties on and went, ah! So he had to leave. And
Okay, so that's not normal in Paris
I don't know
then.
if it's normal for husbands to be sitting there watching, because people are just walking out of the dressing rooms and parading around in there for advice, right, from the sales lady. As in a lot of Paris boutiques, they just have one of each item hanging. So you have to kind of pick your style, and then you have to ask for your size. I was able to just kind of explain my dilemma. I didn't know what size I was in European sizing because they don't use American sizing, but she found one that fit, and it fit perfectly with no padding, no gaping.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because you had mentioned that there's no push-up bras, or that you didn't see people wearing push-up bras. It's just more like natural, real beauty.
But you can tell when someone's wearing a really heavily padded push-up bra. And for the most part, I didn't really see that kind of very molded, rounded push-up cup. The ones in the store that I went in, and I also went in like a large department store and browsed through the lingerie section. And a lot of the styles, they have the underwire cups. The one I chose didn't. A lot of them are just like the lace or the mesh, for the fabric, and with an underwire. So I didn't see that kind of bra in the shops that I was in. A lot of them are just more natural, offer more natural silhouette, I would say.
Okay, so you go into the lingerie store, you find your style that you like. They help you with the size, and are the colors on display, or do you talk to them about color afterward too?
No, all the colors. So they would have had one of each color on display of each style. So the one I picked came in blue and cream with the matching panties underneath. Yes. So I got like a French blue. They have the different colors for sure in the shop that I went in. It was just the stores are quite tiny because they don't have all their inventory out on the floor. That was the case in every store that I went into. I didn't go in Zara or a store like that, but the boutique style stores that I went into, it's really almost like a gallery atmosphere, and it almost makes shopping feel more relaxed. It's like you're shopping with more intention. It it just encourages more thoughtful decision making, I think, compared to, again, at home at the mall here, where it's just like the racks are just sagging. I think it almost creates this, I need more, I need a haul, I need to bring home a haul instead of one or two carefully selected pieces.
That is the feeling that I was getting, the way that you were describing the boutiques. It's the high touch customer service. It feels more luxurious when you walk in and you're shopping that way versus here's all the stuff, grab it, pick it out yourself, and then go
in the dressing room
wait in line.
Yeah. Whereas there you have to ask. In fact, there were times I felt like I did something wrong because I had picked out a little scarf, just a little silk scarf, and I brought it up to the counter and said I wanted to buy it. And then I realized it was what I had done felt like a no, that I should have brought her over and said I would like to purchase one of these scarves, where she would then go in the back room and get it out of inventory, and then I had actually picked the display piece. That I shouldn't have done that. I think that's the impression I
Ooh,
got. Yeah, like it's very set. It's like you're in a little gallery. And it's not self-serve for sure.
the scarf that you brought home wasn't touched by 100 people who had been in the store.
No, it was right out of it was in the cellophane packaging, right? She
Yeah.
went and got it in the stock room. Yeah.
So how can we live more of a French inspired life? What are some little things that we could do every day to elevate our environment and our surroundings to make it more beautiful, more Parisian, more luxurious?
Well, let's start with style, since I know that's your area of great interest. My
Yeah.
observation, and look, I do a lot of people watching. You might ask if I went to the Louvre or any of the galleries. I did not. I sat.
You
I
didn't?
sat
Oh,
in
I love
cafes.
the arts.
I do too, and I will save it for another trip. But honestly, this was my first trip away with my husband in 17 years, and all I wanted to do, I wanted no plans. I just wanted to enjoy my freedom and just walk. We just walked and walked and walked and sat in parks and sat in cafes, and it was absolutely dreamy. I did a lot of style watching. What I notice is that it looks to me as though people dress with intention. And by that, I don't mean that they're necessarily dressed formally. They're dressed well, but not necessarily formally. It looks to me like they put a lot of thought into their outfits and they look pulled together. And I would say this applies to men and women. Like I loved watching the French men. So fun. So I can't even imagine people around here dressing that way. And my husband wore a scarf while he was there. He only owns one scarf, and he brought it and he wore it, and I was so proud of him. But I haven't seen it out since I got back. It's hidden away.
Oh,
Maybe when the cooler weather hits. But they just seem to dress with more intention. So I think obviously one way is to just add that extra touch to your day, dressing well and wearing clothes that you love and make you feel good is a gift you can give to yourself. It's just a sense of joy that you can bring to every day, instead of just throwing on, the jeans and t-shirt lying on the bathroom floor from yesterday, which I have done.
So a lot of women that I talk to, want to get out of that rut from wearing, the jeans and the t-shirts every day. What did you notice in Paris that they did to polish their style? So was it accessories? Was it jewelry? Was it their bag? Like, what was it? Did you notice like what it was that was different than them just wearing their t-shirt and jeans that made them look more polished in France?
The biggest thing that stuck out to me was the blazers, for sure. Everybody had a blazer.
Oh, blazers are a big trend right now too.
It was the boyfriend blazer, and I had to go buy one when I was there. Yeah, it was everywhere, and the way they pair it with things that you might not think it goes with, but it does when they wear it. So definitely the blazer, and
like
blazer
a pattern, like a print or a color.
Just maybe a little dress, and then just throw this great big heavy black boyfriend blazer over top, and it just seems to work. Anything, just always a blazer. That was the number one thing I saw. The other thing I noticed, I always was under the impression that Parisians wore black, a lot of black and dark colors. So when I packed black and black and black. And that was not the case when I was there. I was surprised by the amount of color. And I actually was listening to your podcast from the other day where you used the term dopamine colors. Well, there was definitely some of that dopamine color thing going on with it. Was the color that I noticed the most was a Kelly green, and it was people were wearing Kelly green pants, and it wasn't just once or twice that I noticed it. It was everywhere. And I was kind of surprised by it. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna actually buy a pair of dopamine Kelly green pants, but if anyone's feeling tempted, then they might look like a true Parisian.
They'd be right on trend.
They'd be right on trend.
And whatever's happening over on the other side of the pond is usually makes its way to America.
Yeah.
So if they're not used to seeing it right now here, it will be. And like I said in the podcast or before, dopamine colors are just really big right now and are business looking clothing. So blazers are for sure. It's like also a blast from the past too. Like wearing blazers
like
with
a
jeans.
90s blazer. Is that where it comes from? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the blazer thing started in the 80s with the big shoulder pads, and then it came back again 2000, like 90s, and then bled a little bit in the 2000s.
Well, I know we touched on this a little bit with the shopping, but there's definitely, it's funny because Paris is so, it's got everything, right? But there's kind of a less is more vibe going on there. The hair color is just toned down a bit from what you'd see over here. The makeup is toned down. Use of fake eyelashes toned down. The nail, all the acrylic nails, nail art, all that kind of stuff. Tattoos. Everything's just toned down compared to what I see over here. I talk about this in my book, but my husband and I had this little game called Oui ou Non, where we take a guess on whether someone was Parisian or was a tourist. And we usually, after a little bit of eavesdropping, you could usually figure out if we were right. There's just a different style vibe. And I would say it's a more natural vibe.
Sounds like that the Parisians are they're more into enhancing their natural beauty.
Yeah. Instead of trying to hang on desperately to youth. Does that make sense? They're trying to, that's what I'm trying to say.
They're embracing who they are and
what
how they look.
Just embracing a more natural approach to beauty, just accepting who they are. And there's just a lot, things are more toned down. That's the overall vibe.
It just seems like their look on beauty isn't the long fake eyelashes or the fake nails, like all the fake. That's not how they are seeing beauty. No. Their beauty is taking what you naturally have. So you see your beauty, not something fake.
Yeah. It was just like with such a subtle touch. The eyelashes are a great example because they're so ubiquitous around here and they just seem to be getting longer and longer. I did have fake eyelashes at one point. I did try them out and I had a horrible reaction to them. And they're gone from my life now. But I think after going to Paris, I think I would have been inclined to get rid of them.
No judgment if someone wants to wear eyelashes or fake nails or Botox and all the things, but it's just not anything that I've ever been interested in yet. I have worn fake eyelashes that are glued on. I've never been able to, just things on my eyes just drive me crazy. So I have worn fake eyelashes for videos and stuff before, and I'm like, why did I do that? It just looks so silly on me. And if someone chooses to do that, it's totally fine. But I think I'm definitely taking, the more Paris approach to, yes, I have wrinkles. At this point, I haven't chose to, do anything extra.
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea is if you choose to do something, I'd keep it as subtle as possible, if that makes sense. So
yeah, because I think what happens is we see the eyelashes instead of seeing your eyes.
If you have large eyelashes and plumped lips and really colored hair and the nails and the big push-up, it's about not being overdone. So it's about picking and choosing and being subtle in your approach to beauty. That's the impression I get. Again, these are all just my observations. I'm not an expert. I'm just basing it on my personal experience.
Yeah.
I think we got to talk about food because we're talking about France. and it's such a big part of their culture. I hate to pick on North Americans, but I'm one of them, so I'm allowed to. There's such a grab and go culture here of just grab and go and eat on the run, right? And it's just not the same there. People watch so much that when I passed school groups out on their field trips, I actually kind of sauntered over and checked out what the kids had in their lunch boxes,
Oh,
because
wow.
I was
They would
curious. What are the French kids getting in their lunch, and what are my kids getting in theirs? There's just less processed stuff in there. You don't see them eating Subway like you would over here. There's just kids are all just sitting down, eating their lunches. Everyone just seems to actually sit down and eat. I really noticed it when we were down in Provence, and you'd see these families out on Sundays picnicking, and they had like all the dinnerware, cutlery, wine, glasses, the whole, they just put so much more effort into not just, I think, preparing their food, but also the experience of eating their food. So I definitely think that's something we could all probably work on a little bit. I know I could. There's just more, again, approaching it with intention.
Yeah, and they were showing up with style too, right? It's not just in what they're wearing, it's in how they're presenting their food and their picnic and
their
creating
picnic
beauty.
And their classic little red checkered. It looked like something out of a movie. It was quite quaint watching the French families picnic. Again, just do things with more intention and, as you say, by design, right?
Yeah. We get to decide how we want to show up and surround ourselves with.
And the great thing about that is it just brings more enjoyment to your life.
That does inspire me to be more intentional about presentation. I haven't done that in a while. I used to be really good about setting the table all pretty and presenting the food, and I haven't really done a very good job with that lately.
I mean, it's hard. I think you have teenagers like I do, and my kids are running busy schedules, and it's hard, sometimes in my house, people are eating dinner at different times because someone's got soccer and someone's got to work, and it is hard.
Did it feel like the Parisians had a slower pace schedule? Or are they just as busy as we are?
I didn't talk to a lot of Parisians in kind of a personal setting. So when I've traveled in the past and I've stayed at Airbnbs, I would have been in more rural areas because we usually go to Provence, and they were definitely operating at a slower pace. Like they had all the time in the day to talk and go food shopping and drive here for bread and here for meat and cook this and cook. I will say, and this is a cultural thing, in the restaurants, there's definitely no rushing you out the door. That's for sure. You have to ask for the bill. So that vibe is a bit more relaxed.
What's another way that we can live our best life learning from the French?
I have a chapter called Live a Romantic Life. Paris is known as probably the most romantic city in the world. I think in our busy day-to-day lives, I think romance often falls to the bottom of the list. I know I've been married for 22 years. This is the first trip in 17 years. I have never gone on a trip with my husband without my kids. It made me realize, gosh, we don't have to find opportunities to find alone time together. We don't have to go to Paris to do that. And I think a lot of people in relationships, long-term relationships, could probably take a closer look at how much effort they're putting into the relationship, the romantic side of the relationship, and finding ways to squeeze in alone time, whether it's booking a day off together and still sending the kids to school or daycare and having that day off together, or instead of my husband goes out on a lot of business lunches. Well, I could be one of those business lunches.
Definitely.
We often don't think about it, but why not me instead of the banker? So I think it kind of brought that to the top of my mind to think, we had so much fun on this trip and I don't want to lose that feeling. So let's find ways to kind of reignite reignite that sense of romance once we go back home.
Yeah,
Even
just
yeah,
being aware,
being aware of it.
right? Being intentional.
Yeah, again, being intentional. I think just being aware of it. So that's not, a French specific thing, but there were a lot of things that kind of came to me. Again, a lot of the chapters are just little musings that came to me as I was sitting there observing things that aren't necessarily French specific, but that were inspired by my experiences there.
The chapters are short. They're a couple pages. You could sit down and read them and just get a little inspired by your trip.
Kind of designed to be a cup of coffee. So you could read a chapter with a cup of coffee and be on your way. That's the idea.
Oh, that's fun.
A cafe.
I love that. We get to decide how we want to live our life and then make the decisions that are going to form that. So often we just get following our habits and doing the same thing every day and not thinking, how can I make my life just a little bit more sweeter, just a little bit more beautiful? When we do that, that's where we get to create the life that we want. What kind of relationship do I want to have with my spouse? And make it happen. What do we need to do differently? Because we're all just creatures of habit, and just adding little things in there to change it up, to make life more interesting, is choices that we have.
It's true. And it's all within our control. And again, it's really just little tweaks here and there. And a book like this, I'm not saying anybody has to sit there and incorporate all however many chapters there are in it. It's a pick and choose a few that speak to you and just add a few little changes to your life. And it can actually have a pretty big impact in just bringing more joy and beauty into your day-to-day life. That joie de vivre that the French are so known for, right? That's kind of what it's all about, is as you say, making the choice.
And everything that I do try to look for ways that I can level up. We could think things have to be the way that they always are. What in our life that we're doing that we've just accepted that it's okay for that to be boring? Let's close this up with sharing what your favorite French fashion brands are.
Ooh, well, that's hard. I have a lot. I shop, we've talked about this. I shop a lot of secondhand. It's something I'm always trying to get my hands on, is French brands. Of the stores that I went in there, I saw a few new ones that I liked. Sœur is one that I really liked. That's where I bought the scarf that I felt I had inappropriately carried to the cash register. I like a brand called episdoe. I don't like all their stuff, but they have really nice sweaters. Has a bit of a Cézanne feel, maybe a little more whimsical. I also liked Cézanne. I actually bought a blazer by Rouge when I was there. I also tried a lot of stuff on. I didn't actually buy a lot of stuff, but I tried a lot of nice things on at Sandro, and I like Bosch as well. So I'm not into the high end stuff. I didn't go into any of the big fashion houses. There were lineups outside Louis Vuitton down the street. I didn't go. Wow. It was crazy, and I wasn't going to buy anything in there. So, I peek at the window displays are always fun to look at, but I'm kind of in I'll say mid-range. The stuff's really still expensive, but again, I'm always looking for it secondhand anyway. But a lot of those brands you can get in the States. What's another one? Mage. And I do like my Veja sneakers. I wore those in Paris.
Well, thank you for coming to help us live a more French inspired life.
Yeah, it was
with
fun.
Your book and what you observe there. Where can they find you?
I have an Instagram page that I share on somewhat frequently at the.elevated.everyday.
Go give her a follow on Instagram. I'm going to be in London on May 20th and in Paris on May 29th, meeting with podcast listeners. We are a top podcast in London, hopefully in France sometime soon. I would love to meet up with you and see you in person. Send an email to team@styleguidesociety.com if you would like to stay in the loop of when we are meeting. But until next time, think like a style icon. Bye-bye.